1039 LI News Radio. People, power,
I thought this was America.
and politics.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
With Fred Towle on 1039 LI News Radio.
Welcome back to People, Power, and Politics here on LI News Radio 103.9. We're broadcasting on this lovely afternoon from Islip MacArthur Airport. I'm your host, Fred Towle, and of course, our show over the last hour has been a discussion about the Suffolk County Deputy Sheriffs, one of Suffolk's oldest law enforcement agencies here in Suffolk County. And of course, we are pleased to have in the studio with us the President, John, and Executive Vice President Artie, in which we're talking about what the deputy sheriffs do, and also about the situation that you've had with County Executive Steve Bellone. And we have a caller, Kevin Gwynn. Southampton PBA or Suffolk PBA? I think it's Southampton.
Southampton, yeah.
Kevin, how are you?
Hello?
Hey, Kevin, it's Fred. How are you?
Hey, Fred, how you been?
I'm good, brother. How about yourself?
Good, very good. I was just listening. I'm driving. I'm on Bluetooth, by the way, so I don't want to get a summons. But
That's good. I'm glad you, as a law enforcement officer, you're complying with the law.
Absolutely.
We won't talk about me, who wrote the law, actually, and on occasion I've had to violate it.
Yes. Well, I'm not today, so. But I'm driving, I'm calling, I'm listening in, and I know John and Artie very well. And it's frustrating listening because, discussing the MOA, and that was negotiated faithfully by the DSPBA and their families, and the fact that the county isn't, applying by that, I think, we support the DSPBA, the Southern Town PBA, because what's to keep other municipalities, whether at the county, village, or town level, from doing the same thing? It's frustrating because if we were to violate an MOA or a CBA, collective bargaining agreement, what the public perception would be on us and the penalties for our unions would be. Here we have the money in the general fund for this union and their families, and which was negotiated faithfully by both sides collectively, and they still do not have their money.
What amazes me, Kevin, it's, and I appreciate, I'm sure the deputies appreciate you call too, but I appreciate it as another union president, representing another, officer representing another union. You understand what it is to negotiate in good faith. And what I'm perplexed about is it's one thing to discard the agreement. If you're Steve Bellone and you say, hey, look, I don't like the agreement Steve Levy did, I'm going to null and void that agreement. Great. I don't know if I could agree with you. You could do it or not do it. That's an argument itself. But then give back the $4 million at the very least. And he didn't do that. Then you null and void the agreement. You don't give back the $4 million. And at the end of the agreement where it calls for you to give back the $4 million, you still haven't given back the $4 million. What are you doing with the $4 million?
Exactly. And it's sitting there. And they should simply, honor that MOA and get this done, because it is a waste of taxpayers' money. Because that's who's paying for all this litigation. And I know you talked about it earlier. And
the county is being represented by attorneys, whether it's the county attorney's office or outside attorneys. They have a budget for that. I am sure that if they've been to PERB and they've been to Supreme Court and now they're about to go to federal court, the county has expended hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees to fight an agreement that the county agreed to. It doesn't seem to me to make sense when you're facing the budget problems that Suffolk County is facing.
Exactly. It makes no sense. And I don't speak for John and Artie. I speak for the town PBA. Moving forward in federal court, we can only hope that, and I'm confident they're going to win that there should be interest on top of that money. That money's been sitting there that these families could have had. They haven't. And if that should come, which I hope it does, once again, the taxpayers lose that additional interest on that $4 million. Should they, the DS, John and Artie, SPBA be successful.
It just seems very foolish, penny wise and pound foolish to do the direction that Steve Ballone has chosen to do. This is his call solely and singularly. I mean, there's nobody else to hold accountable. The buck stops with Steve Ballone, the Democratic County Executive, and what he is doing to the members of the Deputy Sheriff's Union is wrong. And as I said, it's not an issue in my mind at all. I am a strong law enforcement supporter, always was, always will be. The PBA does a great job. Their men and women are great. Noel has every right to fight for his members, just as John and Artie do to theirs, and you to yours. And when, if the shoes were reversed and Noel had an agreement with Steve Ballone, and Steve Ballone lost last November, and Jim O'Rourke, I think, was the guy's name that ran, if I'm not mistaken, or whatever. I've lost track even of that. But
Jim O'Connell.
Yeah, Jim O'Connell. There you go. Jim O'Connell. He ran. If he won and decided he wanted to void the agreement with the PBA, Noel would have filed the perb action and been in court as fast as your head could spin, and that's his job. It just seems to me. It just seems to me that you're the chief executive officer of a county that's larger than many states. This is not a way to treat your workers. It's not a way to treat law enforcement, and it's not right that you're really giving the taxpayers the shaft as well, because the last time I checked, these 250 plus deputy sheriffs don't live in Trenton, New Jersey. They live here in Suffolk County.
Exactly, and it's important that all the unions understand that this needs to get done, and the DSPBA, that MOA should be on it, because it just doesn't affect, and I know a lot of the public are listening, it just doesn't affect law enforcement. Looking outside the box, this affects every working union, whether you're a Communication Workers of America with Verizon, the International Brotherhood of Electronic Workers, electricians. It affects them as well. We don't want a municipality to be so empowered that negotiating faithfully means nothing.
Yeah, no question about it.
Yeah, and this affects everybody. It affects every working family on Long Island.
It's a very bad precedent. It's a very bad precedent.
Terrible precedent. And Fred, it's one of the reasons, like, on the East End, we just formed the Eastern Long Island Police Conference. And it's a conference unique to itself. And for this one, and this is one of the reasons why we formed, it's because one union with a problem like this has even a bigger voice. And the politicians and administrators need to understand that you're just not dealing with the DSPBA, that you're now dealing with 20-some-odd other unions that this could affect. And in forming that conference, we were able to come together, all the unions, for good labor relations and the sharing of information, and to address situations just like this. And we want to make sure that when a situation like this happens, you are just not putting aside one union, whether it's 250 members or a small police department in East End made up of 10, they have a larger voice. And,
right.
and that's the reason why we formed that conference, and to protect our families, and also to provide a better service to the communities we represent in sharing of jurisdictions. And this reason, this situation, is one of many reasons why that conference was formed. And the DSPBA has the support of that conference, and their families do too, and that's important.
Kevin, we really appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much, and good luck with that new group.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fred.
Good talking to you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks.
So, there you go. Another union president, police union president, from Southampton, speaking in favor of, your organization and what's been going on. It just doesn't seem right. I mean, the county of Suffolk is facing some of the worst fiscal times they have ever experienced. Report in today's paper that the sales tax growth was a little better in the first couple months of the year. That number was wrong. They were off by 4 or 5%, actually, a 0.4 or 5%, not a full 4 or 5, 0.45. The growth would have to continue at plus 3-something% in order for the county to meet the expectation of what they budgeted for. I just think that's unlikely, in my opinion, as a former legislator and former staff person that's dealt with the sales tax revenues. I mean, all one needs to do is look at the gasoline sales tax that we thought we were going to make in 2016, because last year gas was $3.89 a gallon, and this year it's $1.79 a gallon. So therefore, the sales tax we're collecting is less. The sale for the infirmary was budgeted in the budget. That has still not happened, even though they're negotiating with Brookhaven Memorial Memorial Hospital, which would be a great deal if the hospital were to take over that operation. I mean, that's something I think that's, a sound decision, but the issue of money and dollars is in play there. The fact that the county executive has, along with the legislature, increased DMV fees, and the county executive staff forgot to tell the DMV. So for 3 or 4 months, they've not collected that added fee, creating another $10 million a month shortfall in the county budget. That's $40 million this year alone, on top of the deficit that the county had, on top of the fact that your members are owed $4 million. I mean, it appears to me that Steve Ballone is trying to sell first-class accommodation tickets aboard the Titanic after it hit an iceberg. And yeah, there's plenty of open rooms, but the question becomes why, and what's all that ice on the deck? It's not the bartender who spilled the bucket of ice. You hit an iceberg, Steve. The county's finances are in a disaster right now, and instead of bringing the ship into port, you're traveling further out to sea. I mean, I can only imagine the morale of your deputies must be horrendous in dealing with this problem.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is being out of contract for 6 years. I mean, this is the longest we've ever gone in our history.
So you also don't even have a contract in place, right, aside of these other issues.
Correct. We are 6 years without a contract. Again, the longest in our history. I mean, there's one of the things when you're president of the union, there's certain things that you want to accomplish. Being out of contract 6 years is not one of them.
Yeah. I mean, you're expected. That's your main task.
Exactly.
Protect the members, and you protect them via a contract.
Right. And
not that you can believe anything the guy's telling you, if you did have a contract, because clearly here he's null and voiding documents that are, enforced by law, signed by attorneys, his staff, your attorneys, your staff. I mean, it just seems crazy to me. What's the premise now? In addition to winning in federal court, you said you were sent to an arbitrator?
What happened was when Judge Mayer ruled that it was a valid agreement, he directed the parties to go to arbitration. However, the county appealed that decision. First, they actually filed motions to get Judge Mayer to overturn his decision. This was simply a delay tactic. Because they know the memorandum of agreement expires in December of 2017, there's a sunset clause. The tactic here is going to be delay. So they filed motions to get Judge Mayer to overturn his own decision. Surprise, surprise, he did not. After that process, then they appealed the decision to the appellate court, where it's still pending. So we haven't even gotten a date for oral arguments to hear this case.
Right. So if the case is finalized, and I guess this is the county's plan of attack, pretty sad, I might add, but, if the case is finalized, Steve Ballone, you couldn't, void this agreement. It was a legitimate agreement. Pay back the $4 million because you broke your end of the agreement. You would obviously then seek damages, interest on the $4 million, attorney's fees, all of the expenses and costs of filing the lawsuits that you did. So that number of $4 million is definitely going to go up significantly, I would imagine.
Correct. And when it does go before an arbitrator, well, now the county loses the ability to decide their own fate. You don't know what the arbitrator is going to decide our remedy shall be for taking us off the highway. So again, who's the loser in this situation is the taxpayers of the county.
Yeah, in the end, because it's costing them money on, to make up, to make you guys whole, and it's costing money to attack you guys at the same time.
And just to also touch on that the county attorney's office is not representing the county. It is an outside counsel, so it's costing the taxpayers a lot of money. If we can compare it to what we've spent on our end, it's upwards of $300,000 to litigate this issue.
This issue that's a pretty slam dunk issue. Here's the agreement. I signed it. Yeah. You took my money. You don't want to honor the agreement. Give me my money back. That would seem at the very basic. I mean, and if he's not going to adhere to that, look, somebody's had to say something to you. What is the comment about, okay, the agreement has now come to an end. We didn't believe we had to give you the money back, after we voided the agreement. But it does clearly state you're getting this money back on this date certain. What's their argument not to give you the money back now after the agreement has expired?
Well, some very strange logic is being employed here. They said that the justification for not paying the $4 million is due to pending litigation. Now, if you try and wrap your head around that, the pending litigation was caused by them. by their actions, by violating the agreement. So now your justification for not paying the $4 million is because of all the pending litigation.
Well,
That's
either
very
way,
strange.
even if they won every bit of the litigation, every step of the way you lost, the agreement still called for the returning of the money on a date certain.
Right.
Why not return that then? I mean, what would be your, obviously there'd be interest of you to still pursue the lawsuit because you want a clarity as to what's legal and what's not. You've laid out money for legal fees. You've laid out, you've lost interest on that money, so have your members. But if they hand you your $4 million back, the level of the wind in your sails and your members' sails to fight, I would have to think would be lessened somewhat, knowing they got their money back and, now you could try to move on with your life. It seems to me so ironic and crazy that he just thinks, he being Steve Ballone, that the county can keep the $4 million and the hell with the agreement, the hell with the deputy sheriffs, the hell with their union, the hell with their members, and I don't care. I can do whatever I want. I was elected king.
And on top of that, being 6 years without a contract, it's just simply outrageous. And, just getting back to, their justifications for why they did certain things. When you look at the agreement back in 2012, and the decision was made to return the Suffolk County Police back onto the roadways. But at the same time, the county executive declares a fiscal crisis. Okay, so if we're in a fiscal crisis, you have one agency, the Suffolk County Police Department, their base pay being $139,000. Well, the base pay of a Suffolk County deputy sheriff is $75,000. So you have a disparity of $64,000 between two agencies. So you replace the lower paid officers with the higher ones at the same time declaring a state of emergency. It absolutely makes no sense, and I don't even know how you can justify that to your constituents.
And not only that, the new pay scale that they negotiated with their new officers will still be making more than a deputy that's been on the job for 20 years.
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me as of today. I have looked at them over the last 6 months. In relationship to the size of the county and the population of the county and the number of police officers who have retired, left the job, been promoted, died, went out on disability, whatever, left the service, moved, took another job in another state, whatever, the level of vacancies compared to the number of officers they're hiring, I think there clearly needs to be more police officers hired in Suffolk County, without a doubt, more Suffolk County police officers to deal with some of the growing problems that are going on in Suffolk County for the areas that they are responsible for to police. So it would seem to me that as you continue to stretch that resource and not fill those vacancies and not hire enough people and not move quickly enough, which in my opinion, the county executive has not done that, you'd want the help of other agencies to supplement and work together. I mean, right now as things exist, the county is almost divided like north and south. I mean, it reminds me of the times of the Civil War. The police are responsible for Brookhaven West, and Brookhaven East is the deputy sheriffs, and neither of you shall cross the line and go to the other side. It seems ironic that, the county executive would try to promote that type of unhealthy environment when you're both law enforcement officials, sheriffs and police. You work together in many instances. You should work together. That is the goal. The goal is to put you guys together fighting crime, not fighting each other.
Right.
It seems to me, why are we not promoting more harmony and cooperation as opposed to discourse and lying and cheating and stealing and taking things that they're not entitled to, i.e. the county.
No, I mean, early on, that was one of Ballone's goals. He said he wanted to take the politics out of law enforcement, and in essence, I think it may have made it worse, I believe. Also, if you recall, early on in his administration, he assembled a financial team to see what the actual deficit in Suffolk County was. Yeah. And that team came up with a number of $530 million.
Yep.
So to take the lower paid officers off the roadways and to pit us against each other, how does that? I don't understand how that would help to chip away at that deficit.
Do they do patrolling of the expressway and or Sunrise Highway once they leave Brookhaven? Are they doing like Southampton, or are they doing Riverhead? Are they patrolling those roads in those communities?
On the east end, it's covered. On the east end of the expressway, it's covered by Riverhead Town, and on the east end of Sunrise Highway, that's covered by the state police.
Okay. So Suffolk Police, basically, Highway Patrol is stopping at the Brookhaven border for all intents and purposes.
Correct.
You're listening to People, Power, and Politics here on LI News Radio 103.9, broadcasting live from Islip MacArthur Airport on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon that's extremely sunny. I'm your host, Fred Towle. Beautiful weather out there, finally, thank God. We're talking about the Suffolk County Deputy Sheriff's officers, their union, and some of the financial battles and struggles they are having with Suffolk County. And we're pleased to welcome the President and Executive Vice President, John and Artie, in the studio. We've got a minute left before we take the break. How's the morale of the officers with all this stuff going on? I mean, obviously that's a major issue, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely the worst I've seen in my career, and I give all the credit to the members for, coming to work every day, still doing the job, doing it professionally, and not allowing this to, change the way they do business every day. But it's
a struggle. I would imagine. It's
been a long time. I mean, to not have a raise for 6 years, to have money that you earned taken away from you and unlawfully withheld, it just makes you angry. It really does.
John, hold that thought. We're about to take a quick break. You're listening to People, Power, and Politics. When we come back from the break, we'd love to hear from you. 631-451-1039, talking about Suffolk County Deputy Sheriffs.